All right, everyone, welcome to Introduction to Painting in Photoshop. So if you haven't done so already, I want you to go ahead and download the tutorial files for this particular tutorial. When you open that up, you're going to see there's 4 different files in here. So there's Introduction to Painting. We're going to copy a couple of visual styles here. So we have Simple Style 1 and 2, and then we're going to move on to a more advanced style for the last leg of this particular tutorial. So you should get a well-rounded introduction to painting with the tablet. That's the first thing you need to do. The second thing you need to do possibly is that you are either using a tablet that you already own, or you're using one of the tablets in New Media Communications, which means that you have a Wacom tablet. And if you're using this on a school computer, you need to make sure that the computer you're using already has the driver for this tablet. And so how do you check that? Well, you can go to Finder, navigate to Applications, and see if there is a Wacom folder at the very bottom of Applications. It's easy because it starts with W, it's at the bottom. And make sure that there is a folder there for the Wacom tablet. If there's not, and you're on a school computer, you are not going to be able to install this on your own. What you need to make sure is that you ask somebody and go to a computer that has this installed. The Wacom driver is installed on computers in Student Media Services, the Milne Computing Lab, and the Kidder classrooms. So there's plenty of places to go with this installed. You don't have administration rights on the computers at school, so you're not going to be able to download it. If you are on your home computer or your laptop, you can just download the driver and install it yourself. So all you need to do is just do a search for Wacom driver. You should pull it up right away. Driver is Wacom. So this is going to pull up, and you've got for Mac and Windows right here. That's all you need to do. And the driver that downloads and installs is good for all the tablets. So you shouldn't have any problems. If you do, you can let me know, but you shouldn't be having any problems at all. That should take care of it. So once you see that the Wacom driver is installed, what you can do is go ahead and open the Wacom Desktop Center. And if you go ahead and launch that, it's going to search for your devices, and it should be picking up a tablet here. So here I have the Intuos Pro Small. And what you need to know is that you can change things with the tablet here. And so you can open up, for example, the orientation settings. You can change whether the tablet's covering 2 monitors or just 1 monitor. You can change the orientation of the pen. You can change the command keys. So this is the tablet that I have. You may have the smaller black and white tablet from the school if you check that out. So you can change, there's like buttons on the sides. You can change what those functions are. You can change, the orientation of the tablet itself, whether you're right or left-handed. Let's see, you can change different parts of the pen. You can change the sensitivity of the tilt of the pen. There's eraser options here. So there's all kinds of things that you can change with the Wacom tablet. Oftentimes, the Wacom tablet is generalized towards right-hand users. There's so many right-handed people, but I just want you to know if you're left-handed, don't worry. You can just change the orientation of the tablet here. That's what you need to get going for this tutorial. You have to have the Wacom tablet to complete this tutorial. There's no other way to do it. So if you don't have the Wacom tablet, don't even get started. You need to go check that out. There's no way that you can do this with a mouse. It just don't even do it. It's a waste of time. So anyways, that is the deal with the tablet. So make sure you've got that and it's installed, and then you can test your pen and make sure that it's working with the computer that you're on as well. So cool. We're going to go ahead and get started. The next thing that we're going to do is go ahead and launch Photoshop. So we're going to launch Photoshop. All right, so here's Photoshop, getting ready to go, and we're going to create new, and the image that we're going to create today, I guess, is going to be 15 inches wide by 10 inches tall, and of course at a resolution of 300. Make sure it's in RGB, 8-bit color is fine, and then the background can be transparent. So we're going to go ahead and create that. And the very first thing that we're going to do is go ahead and drag our referential imagery in here. So I am going to pull this off to the side. Go ahead and open your tutorial files. And we are going to start off by pulling in these fruit and the rocks, I think. So actually just go ahead and pull them all in. What does it matter? So go ahead and pull them all in. I'm not sure that we'll use them all. We'll just kind of see how it goes. If the tutorial is going on for too long, I'll stop and we won't paint with the other images. So we'll see. But you can certainly have them in there for practice just in case. So, okay, so I'm going to go through and I'm going to kind of resize things. Again, I'm not really sure if we're going to use this. I am not really sure if we're going to use this tree or not, or the flamingo, but we'll just have them in there in case. All right, so I'm just going to kind of resize all these and put them in different areas here quickly. And the 3 that I want you to focus on are the rocks and the 2 pieces of fruit. So I guess what I'll have you do is shut the visibility off for the flamingo and the tree, which I do not have labeled. That's okay. And then let's go ahead and get these fruit, the blueberries, the strawberry, and the rocks kind of down to a size that looks manageable for this canvas. Okay, so as I have everything kind of spread out like that, that looks like it'll be manageable for what we're going to be doing in here. And so the first thing that you need to know is that I need to go over a couple of hotkeys with you all so that you can quickly access the tools that you need in Photoshop. So the first thing that I kind of always say to students is that the drawing tablets are, for a lot of students, a really frustrating thing. And the reason that the tablet is so frustrating is because you are dealing with a new hand-eye coordination that you've never had to do before. So you are looking up at a computer screen, which you're used to doing, but you are drawing down on your desk without looking at your hand. And that feels really weird. And the other thing is that your brain has to make a new connection that it's never made before, which is that your hand is drawing down. You're not looking at your hand, but you're paying attention to what you're drawing on the screen. So if you start drawing with the tablet and you're feeling frustrated, like you're trying to learn how to ride a bike for the first time, it's because you are in a lot of ways. This is a new type of hand-eye coordination, a new balance for your brain, and that's why it feels frustrating. So what you need to do is take my advice and tough through it and stick with it for a couple of days, because it's not going to feel weird after a little while. And hopefully by the end of this tutorial, you're going to feel a lot better with it. Now, you know, some people really like the tablets. Some content creators really like the tablets and actually use them for like video editing and all kinds of other things. But this is a critical tool if you are going to be making communication design work and doing any sort of graphic creation or illustration. You know, painting in Photoshop isn't really necessary. I mean, there's other ways to make images, but painting in Photoshop gives a different illustrative feel than, say, vector illustrations and that you create in Illustrator or some other type of vector-based application. So it's a good thing to at least understand how to do a drawing digitally in, you know, an application like a paint application, just so you have an understanding of it. And if you never do an illustration again in your life after this class, that's okay. I'm fine with that. I can live with that. But I do at least want you to understand the process of doing a digital drawing and, you know, what the capabilities are. I have some students that think, you know, that become really interested in this kind of stuff afterwards, and others that don't. So, I mean, and it just reaffirms their hatred for, you know, digital illustration or whatever. But it is something that is foundational in terms of 2D digital design and something that we need to cover in this class. So anyways, the first thing that we're going to do is get started with these blueberries. So I actually want to make my background white, so maybe I should have chosen a white background. But as you'll know through these tutorials, I generally tend to choose a transparent background just by default. That's just, what I do. It doesn't mean that has to be what you do. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new layer here, and I'm going to paint that layer white. So I'm going to go ahead and drag that down to the bottom and dump some white paint in there. So everything's looking white there. And then I'm going to go ahead and just group all my reference drawings into one group. So if I go ahead and select the top one and then shift select from the bottom, I'm going to group these together. And I'm going to bring the opacity of the group down quite a bit because I want to be tracing these and I don't need them to be at totally 100%. So maybe somewhere in there. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to lock the group layer because I don't want to be accidentally drawing on it. And I'm also going to lock my bottom layer because I don't want to accidentally be drawing on it. So one thing that happens a lot when you begin digitally drawing, and quite frankly, even if you've been digitally drawing for many years, like myself, is that you find yourself drawing on the wrong layer. And since this is a pixel-based application, if you draw on the wrong layer, it's kind of destructive. Like, it's there forever if it's a layer that, like if I'm drawing on the red layer of the strawberry and I'm trying to do the white seeds and I'm drawing directly on the red, there's nothing I can do about that. I have to just go back in and cover them up red. I suppose I'll demonstrate this a little bit better in just a little bit. But anyways, the point is that when you're not working on certain layers, and you definitely don't want to accidentally draw on them, if they're locked, you can't do anything to them, so they're safe. And in fact, I'll show you what happens if you do try to paint on a locked layer. So I'm going to go ahead and choose this group, and I'm going to choose my paintbrush, and I'm going to try to make a mark on it, and Photoshop's going to yell at me. It says it can't use the brush tool because the layer is locked. And I'm going to be like, oh yeah, that's so great, because I didn't want to draw on that layer anyways. So it's really a good habit to get into, to lock the layers that you're not working on at any given time. It sounds tedious and like it's annoying, but it really does save you time in the long run, and it stops you from making critical mistakes on your drawing. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started by going over some of the quick keys here. So the very first quick key that you need to know about is the B key, which is for the brush. So if I click off of my brush tool and say I have the selection tool, I hit B, it's going to bring up my brush key. Hidden under the brush key is the pencil tool and other types of brushes. Looks like the mixer brush tool, and which might be useful. And so those are the tools that are hidden under there. So B is for brush. Brush is really important. The next quick key that you need to know about is the eyedropper tool. And so the quick key for that is I. Again, you can get the quick keys for this just by hovering over them. And so the next quick key that you might need to know about is the bucket tool, which is G. So the next one is E for eraser, which is really useful. And the other one that's really important is actually R, and that's for the rotate tool. And if you've never used the rotate tool before, it's because you've probably just seen it as the hand tool. But if you click down on the hand tool, you're going to see the rotate view tool, and this is really, really helpful for what we're doing today. And so if you click down and just drag on your canvas, it's going to see that it allows you to rotate your canvas around as you're drawing, which you're going to see in just a little bit is really, really helpful. So your rotate key is a huge help. So again, that's just R. The other two keys that you need to know about that are super helpful are your hard brackets, and these are to the right of your P key. So if you hit B for brush tool, and let me just create a new layer here so it'll stop telling me I can't do anything. So I've got my brush here, and if I click on the bracket tools, this is the left bracket tool, you can see it's making my brush smaller, and you can see the numbers changing up here as I make the brush smaller and bigger. So I'm hitting the hard bracket key onto the right, and I'm making my brush large and small by doing that. So those are some really basic keys that are going to get you started. So B for brush, I for eyedropper, G for paint bucket, E for eraser, R for rotate, and then those 2 bracket keys for your brush sizes. Up here in your brush settings, a couple of things that you're going to really need to know about too are the opacity, the flow, and the smoothing. And so I'll go over those more individually with you here in just a little bit, but it's really good to understand that you can make changes on these 3 things to change how your paintbrush is behaving. So those are the quick keys and a couple basic controls that you need to be aware of, and we'll go over those in more detail like I said. All right, so let's go ahead and dive into the brush tool. So we're going to go ahead and get oriented with that. The first thing that we're going to do is take a look at some brushes. So the first thing I want you to do is go ahead and go to Window, and I want you to go ahead and pull up the brushes, and the brush settings should open by default with that. And so I'm going to go ahead and pull this panel down a little bit, and what you're going to see are all the different brushes that you have available to you. I have like a million brushes loaded in my Photoshop, so just know you're not going to see quite as many brushes as I have here, but you can download a lot of brushes for Photoshop totally for free. There's tons and tons of them out there, so don't feel like you have to have special access to get the brushes or anything. And there's actually a really well-renowned pack of brushes by a guy named Kyle Webster, who is teamed with Adobe now and actually develops brushes exclusively for Adobe, and a lot of these are his brushes. One of my favorite ones is if we go to like halftones, which is kind of like screen printing look brushes. And let me just toggle this down. You can kind of see that these are a lot of different types of patterns you might see come out of like screen printing techniques. So there's all kinds of brushes that don't necessarily look like digital paint that you could have access to. But anyway, so this is your brushes panel. Let's go ahead and go back up to the top, because we're gonna just stick with a few of the basics for this first exercise that we do, and probably most of what we do. There's so much to learn, and there's so much that you can do with painting in Photoshop that, it would take, I could do a 25-hour course on this all. So anyways, this is where you grab your different brushes, and then you can change the settings of the brush that you use. I'm not going to get too much into this right now because it's going to just make things complicated, but I want you to know that for every single brush that you choose, so let me go ahead and change the brush. Right now I have it on soft round. I'm going to go ahead and switch it to the hard round with pressure sensitivity. And if I come back over to brush settings, you're going to see that I have that particular brush here, and I can change things. I can change properties to that particular brush. I'm not going to do it right now, but that's what the brush settings is for. So brushes is to pick the brush that you want to use, and then brush settings is to change the dynamics and properties of that particular brush and how it's behaving in the application. So I'm going to go ahead and pull these panels over here so that I've got as much room on my screen as I possibly can have.